We know when you're good.
Okay,
All right, cool. Well, Catherine, I appreciate you being up for a Linchpin member interview today.
thank you so much. This is all my pleasure.
Yeah, it's gonna be very cool. Anyone on the outside, I'm sure, often thinks that I'm lying or crazy when I talk about the relationship that a lot of people have in Linchpin or like connections or like following each other's progress. And like this, there's people in Linchpin in the BTWB app, the squad that I follow, and every day all the interaction in the Facebook group. Like my wife and I talk about everybody in Linchpin every day and what's going on and their journeys and their struggles. And, you were somebody whose struggles were potentially more significant than a lot of folks, and you said you'd be open to chatting about that. So we'll start with maybe we'll lay some groundwork as to you said when you were first sending me some information about yourself that before CrossFit you were just an endurance junkie.
Yeah, I was a cardio girly. I just ran around my neighborhood all the time. It was great stress relief, mental health, listening to some tunes and just kind of hammering it out on the pavement. It was sort of my therapy and I loved it. And I got up to some pretty long distances. I think 10 miles was the longest I ever ran. I never did a
Good
half or
for
anything like
you.
that. Yeah, it was just being outside, getting those endorphins, was really good for me, but I never once considered strength training or lifting weights. It just, for some reason, never really crossed my mind.
Do you love running to this day, or is running now stupid?
I'm somewhere in the middle. I appreciate the benefits of running, and when I'm in the right headspace, a nice run around the neighborhood is good. But I've lost the sort of magic of the runner's high when you do it regularly, and it's more second nature. It's a little bit more of a struggle. That first mile sometimes is a little more like trudging through mud, but I definitely
Yeah.
still enjoy it.
You think back and you're like 10 miles. How did I just used to go out and just knock that
I,
out?
in hindsight, I think I just sort of went out of body a little bit, honestly. Like you get into the groove, like even though I don't have that feeling as much now, I remember that feeling of just kind of really getting in that magic place where you kind of tune out and you just enjoy the experience. So I think that's how I was able to do it. I don't get that so much now.
A runner's high, I think, is a real thing
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
because I spent a lot of my life running as well. And sometimes you get into a zone which, you know, you don't get into a zone doing like Fran or Death by Burpees. You're just suffering. But,
Exactly.
but it
Yeah.
is possible to get into some sort of a zone and you're just knocking down miles and there's an interesting, I don't know what the right word is there, but it is unique. And when you experience it every now and then, it's pretty cool and you know when you got it. But um you also said, my goodness, so you're married and you've got three kids all under 4 years old.
Yeah.
You are a busy woman.
Yes, we have quite the circus going on here. My oldest just turned 4 on the 13th, which is hard to believe. And then I have 2.5-year-old twins. So it's a little bit of a nut house.
Oh my goodness, with three kids, when do you find time to do anything for yourself, such as a quick workout?
So my husband and I actually have a pretty good routine going. He wakes up the crack of dawn to work out so that I'm on duty in case any of the kids wake up early. I sleep in a little bit and I do my workout in the evenings when
Okay.
he goes to bed to get up at the crack of dawn and he's on kid duty. So um, I like to get up early in the morning if I can, but we just sort of kind of try to split the schedule so that one of us is always available. Sometimes it's a little harder to fall asleep if I
Hmm.
try to go to bed right on the heels of a tough workout, but generally speaking, it seems to work pretty well.
You'll appreciate this as a mom of three about how, life has no regards for your plans. So we've got three kids. My daughter, she'll be 4 in June, so she's about 3.5. Then we have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, two boys. And we got to go to our 15-year-old boys, he's a freshman in high school, his basketball game last night. And our 13-year-old babysitted our daughter, which was great, right? So we actually like got to
Love
get
it.
her in the house for 2 hours. It was amazing. He put her to bed. He's great with her. We got home.
Wow.
Life is fantastic. And then at about 3:15 in the morning, I hear her yelling for me this morning. And I'm like, what in the world? I wander down there. my 13-year-old had neglected to put a pull-up on her. And so
Oh
her entire
no.
bed was just soaked with urine at 3:30 in the morning. And that was how my day started.
The life of a parent, it's the unknown and unknowable.
Every day it's something. You just gotta, curveballs are gonna get thrown at you and you're gonna do your best to just deal with them. It is what it is.
Yeah, I had a similar situation this morning. My boy twin, I heard the door open when I was downstairs drinking my coffee, and I was like, "Well, wait a minute, they're both in their cribs." So I went
Uh-huh.
around to look up the steps, and he had jumped out of his crib and jumped the baby gate at his door, and I guess was trying to tell me he was ready to get up. He was standing at the top of the stairs. So, new level unlocked for him. We're gonna have to up the security.
I was going to say, if that is a glimpse into his future of being mischievous and creative and adventurous, you're going to have some stuff going on.
He's the one. He's the doesn't care about anything. I'm just happy to be here, all about the vibes, guys. So we're gonna have our work cut out with him.
Oh, that's hysterical. So you said you're all about the running, having a blast. You meet who's now your future husband, and he's actually the one that got you into CrossFit. This is back in 2017. And talk to me for a sec because you said what initially drew you to CrossFit that you really liked was that you said for the first time, exercise didn't seem like you were chasing some sort of a specific weight goal. What was that difference for you?
Yeah, so as much as I grew to love running, a lot of it was, calories burned. It was very much a product
Gotcha.
of sort of like the 2010s, you're working to get down into that size 4 Lululemon
I was gonna
pair of
say,
leggings.
I think unfairly, that's something that women feel way more than men.
Yes, yes. I grew to appreciate what it gave for me, both mentally and physically, but it was never a performance based activity for me. I mean, obviously, I enjoyed when I got faster and was able to run longer distances, but it was really aesthetically
Hmm.
based. So when I met my husband, and I think it was in the first week of being in a CrossFit gym, one of the members who was 7 months pregnant flipped upside down and did handstand push-ups, and I was like, "Whoa, this is like a different
Blew your
breed of
mind.
person." Yeah, it was just seeing what these people's bodies could do and the diversity of body types doing these things. It just gave me a new appreciation for what exercise could be and what you could be doing it for. And it was something unlocked in my brain, like, okay, I want to be able to do this really cool stuff instead of just saying I burned 300 calories on a 5K.
That's, I mean, totally different tangent we could go down. Like, exercise is great. I don't care what you're doing, right? Running,
Yeah.
yoga, whatever it happens to be, like, that's cool. But there is something unique, I think, to build people's confidence about lifting barbells, jumping on boxes, trying to get some pull-ups, looking at a rope, thinking, can I climb that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's some next level confidence to be gained by that I think is very different than just pounding the pavement on a run.
Oh, for sure. And I remember the first time I tried to just get inverted on the wall because all these people made it look so easy. They were like, it's fine, just kick up. My
Sure.
arms just completely gave out and I ended up just falling flat on my face. And that's when I was like, okay, not only are these people strong and it looks really cool, but there's a skill component here that I really have something to work for because it's not as easy as it looks. It's going to take practice. And I have this goal now of mastering all of these different skills.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that list of things to work on just never stops. It just
Yeah.
continually grows. And you said maybe just by dumb luck, maybe you have a crystal ball and you can see into the future. You started building a home gym and actually finished in January of 2020, which was just
Yeah.
miraculous.
We are so fortunate. I don't know what it was about the timing, but literally we put the last stall mat down in January of 2020. I got a little decal made that said CrossFit Perry with like a gun and a barbell crossing. And it's literally 2 months later, not
And
a
the world
dumbbell
shut
was to
down.
be found. Yeah, you couldn't find any equipment. And we were pretty much completely outfitted at that point. So, yay.
Yeah, no joking. And then, you wrote something in your summary of your fitness journey in your life that it was just this, I don't want to say an easy sentence, but it's just a sentence or two, but I have to assume that behind that sentence or two, there was a lot more. You said, you got pregnant with your first child in 2020, and then your first child was born with a congenital heart defect, and that
Mhm.
she had to have open heart surgery at 4 months old. I literally can't imagine as a parent that experience. I mean, what, how in the world did you keep your sanity?
The honest answer is that I probably disassociated a lot now that I
Fair
look
enough.
back on it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think I really processed what happened until afterwards because I think, especially as a parent, when it's your child, you really sort of click into this, okay, well, this is the course that we have to walk and this is what we have to do. And you
Don't have a
go
choice.
into exactly, you sort of go into get it done mode. And luckily my husband was a wonderful source of strength and support. Um, but yeah, we just kind of said, okay, well, she's going to be fine. You know, it is a life-threatening condition, but luckily it's one that's easily fixable. Even though it's a pretty intense, obviously, surgery, but this is the course and this is what we have to do. And we just locked in.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine that. And I hear stories like that as parents, and it's unfathomable to me. I would have to think something like that. It would be an understatement to say that that kind of reshuffles in your head what's important in life.
For sure, for sure. Very much like my diagnosis, it sort of teaches you that certain things may be improbable, but nothing is impossible. And all sorts of sometimes awful things happen to all sorts of people, and those people can be you. So you sort of get
Mm.
robbed a little bit of a sense of innocence, but you also steel yourself for whatever life ends up throwing at you later on down the road because you realize you're not exempt from anything, but you have the strength to get through it, whatever it is. So that's been helpful.
And as if that wasn't, having a child is wonderful. It also presents its challenges. You had some unique challenges with that surgery. That's crazy. As if, life wasn't full enough, you said, why not twins?
That was quite the surprise. Quite the surprise. So we had some trouble conceiving my oldest. It just took a while. So we sort of figured like we're probably going to need help if we
Yeah.
want to have a
Yep.
second child. Um,
No help
Fate
was
had
needed.
another plan. I ended up just telling my husband one day, like, "Hey, guess what? I'm pregnant." And then we went to go get the ultrasound, and we were literally saying on the way because my brother and his sister have twins, but we otherwise have no family history of twins. We were like, wouldn't it be something if something crazy were to happen with this pregnancy? Because we felt like as fairly newly married folks, we had kind of been through a lot with COVID and my oldest and
I would say so.
yeah, and then the ultrasound tech just sort of innocently said, "Do you have any history of twins in your family?" And I hadn't connected the dots with that statement. I was like, "Oh no, my brother and his wife have twins, but not on my side of the family." And she was like, "Well, there are two."
Now you do.
Yeah. So my husband started laughing. I started hysterically sobbing,
Oh my
and
goodness.
the rest was history. So
You have got a lot going on. And if
yeah.
the story stopped there, it'd be a full life with the ups and downs and the highs and lows and the stress and the joy and all that stuff. But you know, the the world, life doesn't follow a script. And so
Yep.
you said about what, 18 months after that, what did you find or think that you found?
A lump in my right breast or left breast.
And I have to assume that that was, I don't even know what the right word is, terrifying, jarring, alarming, or was it not? Or was it just like, I should get this checked out, but I'm not concerned. What was that like?
So, um, a lot of women may be familiar with the screening process, but about 50% of women have what are considered to be dense breasts. So it's sort of dense tissue. And I had
Okay.
had a benign lump in my 20s called a fibroadenoma that you know, generally doesn't bother anything. Sometimes these lumps and cysts go away with hormonal changes. So I wasn't particularly scared on the one hand, but there was a gut instinctual feeling that made me think maybe I should be because it just felt a little bit different.
Hmm.
It was very hard. It felt like a marble. It didn't really move. And I had just had a mammogram, my baseline mammogram, because I'm 40, 3 months prior that showed nothing. So I was sort of doing the mental math of whatever this is, it showed up quickly because it wasn't on my
Okay.
mammogram just 3 months ago. So
Yeah.
I was immediately pretty nervous, I would say, not terrified yet, but nervous that I wanted to get it checked out. So immediately the next Monday, I called my gynecologist to get in to get her to feel it and see if I could get some more screening set up.
And what did that lead to, or what, what was that process like?
So she told me after feeling it that she thought it was one of those benign um, lumps, which made me feel better. But I'm the type of person where I want to know for sure. So she offered me additional diagnostics. She said, I'll order you an ultrasound just to be sure if it will give you peace of mind. Obviously, I have 3 small children. I wanted the peace of mind. I didn't
That's
mind the
when you
trouble.
when you just said that, my immediate mind went to like if that was maybe like I appreciate your opinion, I really do, but let's figure this out black and white.
That was exactly where my head was at. Like I appreciate that you think it's something that is nothing to worry about and that you're trying to maybe lessen my fear here in this moment, but I would really like to know for sure. So she immediately issued an ultrasound order. I think I went the next day for an ultrasound. And the radiologist went into my armpit when she was looking at it, and that's when my heart just sank because I knew that if it was nothing, they wouldn't be looking in my armpit,
Uh,
presumably for lymph nodes. So,
I see. Okay.
and
And
then she told me because I said, "Can you please just give me some sort of feedback?" Because a lot of times the techs are schooled to not
yeah,
show any
exactly.
reaction.
Yep.
Yeah, and she said, "I'm very concerned. The margins on this don't look very clear. It doesn't look like anything like a fibroadenoma or a cyst. It's just I'm concerned. That's the most
Hmm.
I can tell you right now without a biopsy, but I absolutely recommend a biopsy. So 2 days later, I went for a biopsy.
And upon is that when you know for sure upon when you get that 2 days later, or do you have to wait? 2 days later was the biopsy, and then you have to wait some more.
My biopsy was on a Thursday, and because it was in the afternoon, she said you probably won't get results until Monday. So I had a very torturous weekend of waiting, and then my results posted to the portal on Monday morning at 10 a.m. while I was at work without any sort of doctor explanation. So I immediately saw the word carcinoma at work and sort of lost it a little bit.
Oh my goodness. I mean, understandably so. And that wasn't, I'm sorry, what year was that?
That was just this past October.
This past October. Okay. Um, when you say that you lost it, that makes perfect sense to me. And maybe you're really good at faking it because as I talk to you right now, you seem very put together and cool, calm, and collected and the whole 9 yards. You know, how long did that lose it period last? And were you ever able to get to that point, like for example, with your daughter's surgery, where you're like, I had my moment to feel whatever I was feeling. Now I need to figure out the darn path and walk the path. And is that what occurred with you? Is it a totally different roller coaster of emotions? What was it like?
So, as a lot of cancer patients may understand, the period of diagnosis and the period between diagnosis and treatment can be full of lots of questions that need to be answered. So, it was sort of a
Right.
roller coaster. Once I got a hold of the head of radiology and he explained to me, it's very small, it's stage 1. The survival rates for breast cancer are, above 95%. You're going to be just fine. You may have a crappy year, but you're going to be fine. I calmed down a little bit.
Hmm.
But with breast cancer, there's certain types of breast cancer. So there's hormone positive breast cancers and breast cancers that don't have any hormone receptors. So even though I knew it was breast cancer, I was still waiting on that final pathology to tell me what kind of breast cancer it was.
I see.
So that posted the following Friday and updated it as triple negative breast cancer, which is the most aggressive breast cancer. So then I lost it again because typically that's had the worst prognosis. And of course, I went down the Google rabbit hole, which doesn't do anyone any good, but
Right.
you can't help
Right.
yourself from doing it. Luckily, I called my gynecologist on her cell phone, which she had given to me, and she talked me off the ledge. And I spent probably a good week doing a deep dive on triple negative breast cancer and what the treatment protocols were. But I think I probably lost 10 pounds worth of just stress. I was so nauseous from fear that I couldn't eat, I couldn't focus, I couldn't sleep. Um, but very quickly after that, a lot of my appointments got lined up. So I met with a breast surgeon, I met with my oncologist, and once we laid out a treatment plan, things got much, much better because I'm very much let's lay out a plan of attack. You tell me what I need to do, I'm going to do it. I don't care if it's ugly, I don't care if it's
Mm.
hard. Just tell me you're going to get me to the other side of this, and
What's
we're going to do it.
necessary?
Yeah, and that's very much the approach my oncologist took. He wrote everything out on a whiteboard, and I immediately was like, "You're my kind of dude. Like, this is what we're going to do." I mean, line by line. And he said, it's going to be an aggressive course of chemotherapy. You're going to need surgery, but, you know, again, you're going to have a crappy year, but you're going to get through it. I'm not worried about you. You caught it early. We got this.
Again, I mean, just from unimaginable from my not having walked in those shoes. Like I said at the beginning of this show, which is why I said it. If the story ended with just having three kids under four, that would be plenty of stress for the average human being. Three kids
Yeah.
under four, learning about a cancer diagnosis, learning about a triple negative diagnosis, like what in the world? How did you still function on a daily life? Because those three kids under four, they don't know what's going on. They still got their needs.
No, no, we've tried our best. They're so young, luckily, that they really don't know what's going on. So we've leveraged that to try to maintain a sense of normalcy as much as possible.
Mm.
And honestly, with the exception of a few bumps in the road during the first half of my treatment, I've tolerated chemo pretty well. They
Oh,
really
okay.
don't
Good.
know what's going on. And I credit my fitness to that. I feel like I've really spent the last 6 odd years un unknowingly preparing for this time. I was very, very pleased to see that my breast surgeon put in my medical notes that the patient appears very fit. So,
It's
because she
funny,
was like,
it's
"Do
funny
you
what
work
can
out?"
bring you joy in these dark moments.
Exactly. She was like, "Do you work out?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Great. You appear really fit." And she said, "All of my doctors have told me, keep it up. You're going to need it. You're going to need that strength. It helps with side effects. Please continue moving." So, with the exception of a few like scares with the immunotherapy potentially causing some side effects, and just getting used to the very, very strong drugs, I've tolerated it pretty well. I'm still working full time. I'm trying to maintain a normal routine.
Wow.
They don't really know what's going on. They do know that mommy cut her hair because this
Mm.
is a wig. So underneath of this, mommy is very bald, but they don't know why. They just like to rub my head. So
Sometimes the ignorance of children is a blessing.
exactly, exactly.
They could be very disarming. I'm sure I can only imagine that a woman losing her hair is a very unpleasant the world's upside down deal. And then just to have the innocence of a child being like, "Oh, can I rub your head?" You're like, "Sure."
Yeah, and they've seen me get wigs in from Amazon and insist on trying them on. I got like a pink one and, trying to make lemonade out of lemons. And, my daughter goes, "Mommy, is that your new hair? I want to try your hair."
Oh, that's God bless him. God bless him.
Yeah.
From never having done it myself, my father went through chemo, but we didn't talk about it. What is chemo like? Like what is the process like? How do you feel that day, the day after? How long does it take to get back to normal? What's the deal with it?
So my course of chemo is one of the most aggressive courses for any kind of breast cancer. So it's 6 months of chemo. The first 3 months are two drugs called Taxol and carboplatin. It's once a week for 12 weeks. And then the second leg of chemo, which I actually start the beginning of February, is for another 3 months, but it's once every 3 weeks, 4 times. And that's AC, which is commonly referred to as the Red Devil. That's typically a little tougher to tolerate. It can make you really fatigued. But the first round, the Taxol and the Carbo, I'm almost done with. Um, at the beginning, the scariest part was the first infusion because they monitor you very carefully for any sort of allergic reactions. They pump you full of steroids to try to prevent it, but Taxol is made from the yew tree, actually. So because it's a naturally derived ingredient, some people do have allergic reactions to it.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to not have that happen during the first infusion, but it's very scary because the nurses are hovering. They're
Mm.
telling you, please let us know if you have an increasing heart rate, if your throat starts closing up, if you get a rash, if you start itching. So that was a little scary. And then I actually ended up developing an allergic reaction around my eighth infusion because the drugs had built up in my system so much. So we've been able to get ahead of that with extra steroids, but extra steroids comes with its own set of fun consequences, like not being able to sleep and being really
Oh,
bloated, and
really?
I'm starving all the time. Yeah. So, but other than that, it's not been too bad. I had a little bit of stomach upset because it completely throws off your gut because it kills all the bacteria. It kills, I mean, it's poison. The doctors calculate your chemo dosage by how much will kill you, and then they dose you just under that.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. So
Oh,
it's pretty aggressive. I've had a little bit of fatigue, but luckily I work for a company that's been very understanding when I need a day or two here or there. And then every 3 weeks, I also receive Keytruda, which is an immunotherapy drug, which has been a game changer. Triple negative breast cancer. It basically teaches your body to identify and attack cancer cells on its own, in addition to the chemotherapy. So it also helps with
wow.
recurrence. Yeah.
But you said each person, you're in a very aggressive chemo, but there's obviously, like you said, a very big difference between how any particular person reacts to chemo.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe
Everyone is different. Everyone is
you're
different.
reacting better. I know my dad, before he passed away, said that it did not treat him well. It would knock him on his butt, but he was very old and he was in terrible shape. So I'm sure that plays a
Yeah.
factor. Whereas you're young and you're fit, and I guess just to circle back to that, you're finding that the medical community has been very supportive of you walking in good shape and continuing to work out even during treatment.
1,000%. They said that it helps mitigate side effects. Before I started chemo, I actually had to have an echo to check on my heart to make sure because it does tax your heart. I've had an elevated heart rate. So that's another, it does affect your body. It's hard on your body. So you do have to be relatively
Mm.
fit to go through it. And AC is typically harder on the heart even than Taxol, but um, I've actually been told and have read that exercise actually prevents cancer recurrence by almost half as well. So,
Oh, wow. That's
yeah,
significant.
a lot of people within the cancer community have actually taken up exercise as a means to prevent recurrence because, when you get a diagnosis, you're looking for everything you can do to try to improve your chances because even if you beat cancer, there's always a chance it could come back. So, I've been trying to make a lot of lifestyle changes just to do what I can, but luckily exercise was already a part of, so I'm trying to keep it up as much as I can.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's a question I had, which was, yeah, you've already got the fitness locked down, but is having cancer and dealing with it and all the research and Googling that you've done, I was going to say, made you say, I'm going to start living my life in a couple areas that I'd neglected different just to set myself up for the most success possible? And if so, what were those areas that you had to address?
So I actually started working with a nutritionist because very much we're very much in our DoorDash era with three small children, especially with cancer treatment, as you can imagine. So it's been very easy to reach for things, especially on chemo, that don't upset my stomach, comfort
Mm,
foods. So I'm really trying to get a grapple on that and focus more on whole foods. A plant based diet has been shown to be very beneficial for
okay.
cancer. So I'm trying to clean up my nutrition. I've completely cut out alcohol. You're not supposed to really have a lot of alcohol on chemo anyway, but I probably will never touch it again just because, it's not worth it to me being
Well,
40
yeah,
years old,
exactly.
waking up the next morning and feeling like garbage for no reason.
Right.
Trying to make sure that my attitude towards exercise has changed a little bit as well. Like those days where I really don't feel like working out, but I do it anyway because I feel like it's a brick in the fitness wall, has now changed to I get to do this. And
Mm,
it's for my future longevity. This is a way to protect my body against whatever may be coming. It's my body's way of healing itself. So this is a privilege. And you realize all those other areas of your life where you're able to make those smart decisions that maybe when you're in active treatment, you can't make. Like I would
right.
love to have some grilled chicken for dinner because I know that it's the right thing to have, but I feel nauseous and I can't do it.
Mhm.
Or I would love to get in a workout today, but my body is telling me no, and I can't get out of bed because I got pounded by 3 drugs yesterday in the infusion chair. You realize what a privilege it is to be able to take care of yourself and to make those decisions for yourself. So my mindset has changed a lot as well.
Man, I think that's so accurate and powerful. And anyone who's been following Lynchman for a while knows like I don't I don't really care about the competitive side of CrossFit. I really it's like whatever. That's not what like really fires me up and motivates me. Like a regular individual who works a full job and has multiple kids and they have a rushed 40-minute window to work out a few times a week and they make it happen. I find 10 times more impressive than some games athletes snatching 300 pounds, like infinitely more impressive. But what you just said, I think is so spot on, which we say all the time, right? Which is, if you work out and you PR, great. But if you work out and you don't PR, it's still great
Yeah,
because the act of working out, the habit of stressing your body in an appropriate way to get a positive stimulus once you recover and strengthening yourself and elevating your heart rate and like just the daily, like you said, stacking those bricks, keeping yourself fit is it doesn't matter how much you back squat. It matters that you are squatting. It doesn't matter what your Helen time is. It matters that you're doing Helen because you don't know what's coming down the road in life and
exactly.
you want to have just have set yourself up for the greatest success possible because the next day, the next decade is a bit of a mystery. And so let's just stack the deck in our favor and those daily workouts and those meat and every meal that you have, all those little good decisions, which by themselves seems like just one workout, just one meal. But as they add up over the course of weeks, months, and years, like you've got a really robust background of strength and conditioning and health that if you ever have to lean on it, it's there, and you're kind
Right.
of living proof of that. So, I mean, I think you're exactly the example that we try to emulate, quite frankly, at Linchpin.
Well, and the programming has been such a gift for me too, because depending on the day and what my energy levels are and where I am within my treatment cycle, I may feel good enough to go for the RX or the wild card. And there are days when I go down to the LEO option because I just don't have it in me to bust out a barbell. I want to do something, but maybe I'm going to scale it down to, 20, 25-pound dumbbells and just do
Mhm.
something that's simpler that requires less prep. I always do the warm up because it feels good, but maybe this is all I'm up for today and I'm not going to set the clock and I'm going to call it a win that I moved. I'm out here, I'm doing it.
100%.
Yeah, so having those
And let's not
options
lie,
is
25-pound dumbbells are
great.
still a beast.
I mean, relatively speaking, I on good days I can go for, maybe a near max deadlift or whatever it is. And then some days, I'll go light and I won't turn the clock on and I will just feel good and gratified that I got
Mm.
out there and lubed up my joints and got my heart rate going and did something. So it's nice to have those options depending on how I feel.
I was going to say, what does these days, you still, like you said, maybe about halfway through chemo, more or
Mm-hmm.
less. What does a typical week look like for you? How many times do you think realistically you're getting in there for any sort of a workout?
So since the first of the year, I've gotten out in the gym 5 times a week, and I'm
Good for
doing
you.
pretty good. Yeah, I it, I've been told that the effects of chemo are cumulative, and I guess it's supposed to get harder the deeper in that you get. But I really had a much rougher time at the beginning when my body was adjusting. I've seemed to sort of settle into a groove, knock on wood. My last treatment wasn't too bad. I felt pretty good. I didn't have those couple of days of fatigue set in. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Man, allow me, this will probably just hellfire will probably rain down on me from the internet for what I'm about to say. Because I have no medical background. I barely graduated college with a degree in sociology, and I'm going to speak about medicine and oncology. My just sideline observer theory as to why you're feeling this way would have to be, again, the fitness that you have, because I would assume how they tell patients what to expect from chemo, what to expect is based upon what happens to most people that they deal with. And if you just look statistically at the United States of America, most people are in wildly terrible health,
Mhm.
terrible weight, terrible strength and conditioning. So the average person that probably gets cancer in awful condition. And then now they have cancer on top of that. And so I would tend to think that you're not set up for a good experience with anything relating to to chemo. And so I'd have to think that your experience and your everything and how you're relating to it and the fact that you're still being able to get in 5 days a week, I don't think it's a coincidence, I guess is what my total just based on nothing um, theory would have to be. And it's funny, it's not funny, but as we do this interview, on that side of the wall is my garage where we work out. And my wife, a few times a week, trains a woman who has breast cancer. And they're in there right now working out. And she's
Wow.
super dedicated like yourself. She's in there 3 times a week. She is on her nutrition and shocking, she's having a much different experience, she's told my wife, than most people who are dealing with chemo and whatnot. So again, I just tend to think that it's not a coincidence.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I will tell you that when I was first diagnosed, I posted in the Linchpin Facebook group about my diagnosis. And I will never forget, I realized what a special place I was in when there was a comment from another Linchpin member who said she had the exact same diagnosis as I did. She called me and spoke to me for about an hour. And she also had remained active doing linchpin workouts throughout her treatment. And I remember she told me, shout out Shayna, that she saw her diagnosis as the biggest workout that she had unbeknownst to her, been training for. And she
Mm.
did the exact same as I did. On days she felt like it, she did the no equipment option. She just tried to stay moving. And hearing that from her, another linchpin member, when I had literally just signed up, I think I was 2 weeks into my membership, the fact that she called me, talked to me for an hour, talked me off the ledge, encouraged me to keep moving. I remembered that and I thought, if she can do it, I can do it, because that's what she said to me. And Linchpin has had my heart since then, because I realized just what a special group of people it was. So I agree. I think that we are a different set of people in the best way, and our fitness has prepared us for whatever it is that's coming our way.
I'm glad you gave her a shout out because you said she's basically an angel, right?
She's an angel. We say all the time that once I'm done with treatment, we're going to visit each other. She's out in the Midwest and I'm on the East Coast, and she's texted me regularly to check in on my treatment progress and to see how I'm doing. And she just has been such a godsend. She's amazing.
It's funny how things work.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't predict it, but things kind of work out. Well, um, your story is astonishing on so many levels. And sadly, this will probably hit closer to home with more people than I wish that it would. But statistically speaking, I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people who are affected immediately or loved ones affected, the whole 9 yards. What would be your recommendation to somebody who is maybe just learning that they have to walk this path that you've been walking for a while? Now you've got some experience under your belt. What would be your recommendations to them?
Oh, that's a big question. Um, I think everyone experiences getting the news of a cancer diagnosis differently. And I think my big takeaway is that whatever you're feeling is valid. Your feelings are your feelings. It's okay to sit in them for a minute. Just because you're scared doesn't mean you have to reject it. I think facing that fear head on is something that will change you forever, especially when you've got kids and you're staring down the barrel of your own mortality. It makes you think about a lot of things differently. Um, as you navigate a diagnosis like this, like I was saying earlier, a lot of things can change. So be prepared for the unexpected. As different lab results come back, you go through surgeries, you get feedback from your team. There's going to be bumps in the road. Just be prepared for that. Most of them are not something you can't overcome. And that, God willing, if you caught it early, there's an end to the journey. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you just got to grit your teeth and do the thing. And you can, and you will.
And I'm sure the checks are important, right? Like you said, the earlier you catch it, the better.
Yes, feel them on the first, ladies. Do your self exams, because if I hadn't done mine, in retrospect, my post-diagnosis mammogram, they actually told me that they could see the lump on my baseline mammogram, but
Oh,
because
really?
my tissue was so dense, they didn't know that that's what it was. So for context, dense tissue, um, cancer or a lump on a mammogram will show up as a white spot, because it's a little dense spot. Everything else is sort of grayed out. If you have
Okay.
very dense tissue, it's essentially like looking for a white spot in a snowstorm.
Gotcha.
Everything looks white. So I probably should have been called back for an MRI or an ultrasound, because it was there all the time and no one saw it. So regardless of what sort of screenings you've had done, please do your self checks. You will know if it's something different, because I certainly did. And having that familiarity by doing your self checks, if something pops up, you'll
Mm,
know it's supposed to be there.
man. Well, again, thank you. Thank you for being open. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for sharing all of this with people. I think it's going to be very, very beneficial. Um, I think you're awesome. You're people like
Thank
you,
you.
like it's incredible what happens in Lynchpin, and it's because of folks like you. So I obviously wish you, your family, your husband, your children, nothing but the best. And thanks again, Catherine. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful for your brutally elegant programming in the community that you've created. It's been a very, very big silver lining to me through this experience to have found Linchpin right before I got diagnosed. So thank you so much.
Well, we'll keep making you suffer in a good way. And so
I love
I will
it.
see you online.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.